Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be diving into ethical AI.
Okay.
And specifically focusing on the work of Adowaa Buolamwini.
Sounds good.
And the jumping off point for this deep dive is going to be an essay from AIvips.org.
Great.
So, get ready to explore how Buolamwini's experiences led her to challenge the tech industry and fight for a more inclusive vision for AI.
Well, her story is such a great example of how personal experience can really fuel a larger movement.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, imagine being a brilliant computer scientist working with, cutting-edge facial recognition software at MIT.
Right.
And then realizing the system can't even detect your own face.
Yeah, it's really a powerful illustration of algorithmic bias. The software was trained on data sets that lacked diversity.
Oh, okay.
And so it simply couldn't recognize darker skin tones.
It's kind of like a slap in the face almost.
Yeah, and for Buolamwini, this wasn't just like a technical glitch.
Right.
This was a wake-up call.
Yeah, and instead of just being frustrated by it, she decided to do something about it.
Exactly. That's how the Algorithmic Justice League, or AJL, was born.
Yeah.
It's an organization that's dedicated to fighting for equity and accountability in the development and use of AI systems.
Makes sense. And the AJL's been making waves, haven't they?
Oh, absolutely.
They've done some groundbreaking research, like the Gender Shades Project,
Mm-hmm.
which, really exposed significant racial and gender disparities in facial recognition systems that are used by major companies.
Yeah, that project really forced the industry to confront the fact that these seemingly neutral algorithms can actually perpetuate and amplify these existing societal inequalities.
It's kind of scary to think about the potential consequences of that.
Yeah.
Like if these systems are used for things like law enforcement or loan applications or something.
Absolutely.
These biases can have a huge impact on people's lives.
For sure. That's why Buolamwini's work is so critical. She's not just highlighting the problem. She's actively working to find solutions.
Yeah, and taking on some pretty powerful opponents in the process.
Oh, yeah.
Challenging the practices of big tech companies.
It takes guts.
For sure it does.
Yeah.
But I think it's great that she's proposing these concrete steps to address these issues, like pushing for inclusive data sets that actually represent the diversity of the population.
Yeah, and I think that's really where her background comes into play. You know, growing up in both Ghana and the United States, she has this unique perspective on how technology can impact different communities.
Absolutely. And not just her background, she's also incredibly well educated.
Oh, for sure.
Having studied at top institutions like Georgia Tech, Oxford, MIT.
She brings some serious intellectual firepower to this fight.
So she's got the brains, she's got the experience, she's got the passion.
Yep.
What kind of specific actions is she pushing for?
Well, aside from advocating for more diverse data sets, she's a huge proponent of transparency and auditing. She believes we need to be able to see how these algorithms are making decisions so we can hold them accountable.
No more black boxes.
Exactly. Transparency is key to building trust and ensuring that these systems are used ethically.
Right.
And she's not just talking to academics,
Right.
She's testifying before Congress, working with governments, and even collaborating with some corporations to promote ethical AI development.
That's really impressive. She's not letting up at all.
Nope.
Is there anything else she's doing to raise awareness about
Well,
that?
she's also using art and storytelling to get her message across.
Interesting.
Her documentary, Coded Bias, does a brilliant job of explaining these complex issues in a way that's both compelling and accessible.
So she's using every tool at her disposal to make a difference.
Yeah.
From research to advocacy to filmmaking. That's pretty inspiring.
It really is.
And it sounds like she's not alone in this fight either.
Not at all. There's a growing movement of researchers, activists, and policymakers who are all pushing for a more ethical and equitable future for AI.
So she's ignited a spark.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are challenges along the way, though.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the biggest challenges, I think, is just the sheer power of these tech giants.
Right.
They have a huge influence on the direction of AI development, and their focus is often on profit rather than ethics.
Yeah, I can imagine that creates some tension.
It does.
So how does she navigate that?
Well, she's really a master at using her platform to hold them accountable. She's constantly calling out these problematic practices and pushing for more transparency and regulation.
But are governments actually doing anything to address these issues?
Well,
it seems like AI is developing so rapidly
right.
that it's hard for regulation to keep up.
It's definitely a challenge, but there has been some progress. Okay. You know, we're seeing more and more policymakers recognizing the need for ethical guidelines and regulations around AI. And Buolamwini's work has been really instrumental in raising awareness and pushing for action on this front.
So she's not just talking about the problem. She's actually shaping policies that could lead to solutions.
Exactly. And it's not just about government regulation.
Right.
You know, she's also working to change the culture within the tech industry itself.
Okay.
Promoting this idea of responsible AI and encouraging developers to think more critically about the social impact of their work.
It sounds like she's really trying to shift the mindset from move fast and break things to think carefully and build things that benefit everyone.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
She's advocating for a more human-centered approach to AI development.
Okay.
One that prioritizes fairness, justice, and equity.
And that brings us back to her vision for the future.
Yeah.
What does she see as the ultimate goal?
She envisions a future where AI is used as a force for good.
Okay.
To address social problems and create a more just and equitable world.
But given all the challenges we've been talking about, is that really realistic?
She believes it is, and she points to some promising trends,
right?
Like the growing field of algorithmic auditing, where experts are developing tools to evaluate and mitigate bias in these AI systems.
So it's like having independent watchdogs to make sure these algorithms are playing fair.
Exactly, and we're also seeing more research that takes an intersectional approach.
Okay.
Recognizing that bias affects people differently depending on their race, gender, class, and other factors.
Right. It's not a one-size-fits-all issue.
It's not.
So it sounds like there's hope for a more ethical future for AI.
There definitely is, but it's going to take a lot of hard work, collaboration, and continued vigilance to ensure that AI is used for good and not for harm.
For sure. And what about our listeners?
Yeah.
What role can they play in all of this?
Well, they can start by educating themselves about these issues. You know, read articles, watch documentaries, and engage in conversations about ethical AI.
And don't be afraid to speak up.
Right, exactly. Hold tech companies accountable, demand transparency, support organizations like the Algorithmic Justice League, and most importantly, I think critically about how you interact with AI systems in your own life.
So it's about being informed, engaged, and proactive.
Absolutely. The future of AI is not predetermined.
Right.
It's being shaped right now, and we all have a responsibility to ensure that it's a future that benefits everyone.
Well said. And to wrap up, could you remind our listeners where they can find out more about Joy Buolamwini and her work?
Of course. All of the information we've discussed today came from a fascinating essay about her on AIvips.org.
Okay.
I highly recommend checking it out for a deeper dive into her incredible work.
And on that note, we'll conclude this deep dive into the world of ethical AI. A big thank you to our expert for guiding us through this complex and important topic.
My pleasure.
And to you, our listener, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's been a really eye-opening conversation.
It has.
You know, one thing I keep thinking about is we often talk about AI as if it's this kind of neutral force.
Right.
But what Buolamwini's work shows us is that it's anything but neutral.
Well, and you know what's interesting is she often talks about how AI is a mirror.
Okay.
It reflects the values and the biases of the people who create it.
Oh, interesting.
So if we want AI to be fair and just,
yeah,
we need to start by examining our own biases and working to create a more just and equitable society overall.
That's a really powerful way to think about it.
Yeah.
It's not just about fixing the tech, it's about fixing ourselves.
Exactly. And that's a much bigger challenge, but it's also much more important in the long run.
Yeah. So where do we even begin with that? It feels like such a massive undertaking.
Well, if we connect this back to the bigger picture, I think one of the most important things is to diversify the field of AI.
You know, right now it's dominated by a very narrow demographic, which means that the perspectives and the experiences of many groups are being left out of the design process.
That makes sense. If the people building these systems don't reflect the diversity of the population,
right?
It's no wonder that bias creeps in.
Exactly. We need more women, people of color, people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, people with disabilities.
Yeah.
All of these perspectives are essential to creating AI that truly serves everyone.
And it's not just about representation in terms of who's building the tech, right?
Right.
It's also about the data that's being used to train these systems.
This raises the question, how do we ensure that the data itself is diverse and representative?
Right.
Because if the data is biased, the algorithms will be biased, no matter who's writing the code.
So it's a multifaceted problem?
It is.
But it sounds like there's a growing awareness of these issues.
Yeah.
Thanks in large part to the work of people like Adowaa Buolamwini.
Absolutely. She's been a real pioneer in this field, and her work has inspired countless others to take up this fight for ethical AI.
Well, I, for one, feel a lot more informed and empowered to think critically about these issues after our deep dive today.
Me too, and I hope our listeners feel the same way.
Yeah.
It's a conversation that we all need to be a part of.
And remember, if you want to delve deeper into this topic,
yes,
be sure to check out the essay we've been discussing on AIvips.org.
It's a great resource.
It's a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to learn more about Adowaa Buolamwini and the fight for ethical AI.
It's a must-read for anyone who wants to understand the power and the potential of AI and the responsibility that we all have to ensure that it's used for good.
That's it for our deep dive this week. Thanks for listening.